A few years ago, I found myself completely consumed by a single question. Why is it that some people merely think of something and it almost effortlessly appears in their lives, while others spend years wishing, hoping, praying, and nothing ever seems to change? I couldn't let it go. The question kept circling in my mind until I stumbled upon something that shifted my entire understanding of reality. What I discovered was this: there is a moment. A tiny, almost invisible split second that exists between a thought forming in your mind and reality, beginning to rearrange itself around you. And inside this microscopic gap, that's where everything happens. That's where the so-called magic lives. The problem is, most people never even realize this space exists, let alone learn how to enter it. Today, you're going to understand what's actually happening when you think, when you feel, when you desire something, and why, for certain people, manifestation seems to happen almost instantly. So let's start at the foundation. Have you ever really stopped to think about what happens at the exact moment you look at something? It seems obvious, almost boring. You open your eyes, light hits your retina, the signal goes to your brain, it gets processed, and boom, you see. Simple, end of story, except that's not the full story. Because when you step into the world of quantum physics, things stop being simple very quickly. In fact, they get strange, deeply strange. There's a principle known as the observer effect, and at its core, it says something unsettling. Subatomic particles do not have a definite position until they are observed. Until that moment, they don't exist in one state. They exist in many states at once, like a hazy cloud of probabilities. And then, only when observation happens, everything snaps into place. One outcome, one reality. This isn't some mystical idea invented by spiritual extremists. This is mainstream physics. The Copenhagen interpretation, which has been the dominant explanation of quantum mechanics since the 1920s, states this very clearly. An electron is not here or there. It is here and there at the same time until you measure it. The moment you do, the wave of possibilities collapses into a single position. Think about it like this. Imagine tossing a coin into the air. While it's spinning, it's not heads and it's not tails. In a very real sense, it's both. It exists in a sewer position. Only when it lands in your hand, and you look at it, does it become one or the other. In the quantum world, that isn't just a metaphor. The coin literally is both outcomes until observation forces a decision. And this is where things get uncomfortable. Physicists have been arguing for over a century about what observation even means. Some insist it's purely mechanical. You need a detector, an instrument, something physical interacting with the particle. Human consciousness, they say, has nothing to do with it. But others aren't convinced, because something doesn't quite add up. Here, SY, when scientists place a detector to see which path a particle takes, the particle behaves like a solid object. A particle. But when the detector is removed, the same particle suddenly behaves like a wave again, spreading out across multiple paths at once. It's as if the particle knows it's being watched and changes its behavior accordingly. So the uncomfortable question becomes unavoidable. What actually counts as observation? Is it an electronic sensor, a camera, a human eye, a conscious mind? The truth is, no one knows for sure. I'm not going to pretend I have a definitive answer, but here's what is undeniable. Quantum physics has proven, beyond any reasonable doubt, that the act of observation changes what is being observed. That part is not up for debate. Now, whether human consciousness itself collapses wave functions in the strict quantum sense, especially on the scale of everyday life, that's still an open question. But even if consciousness doesn't operate that way at the particle level, it absolutely shapes reality in other ways we can directly measure. Your thoughts alter your brain chemistry. Your emotions shift your hormonal balance. Your attention determines what you notice and what you completely ignore. If you wake up believing the day is going to be terrible, your brain will literally filter reality to prove you right. You'll notice every inconvenience, every mistake, every irritation, and miss everything that goes well. That's not quantum mysticism, that's basic psychology. But the result is the same. You experience a terrible day. Your mental observation shaped your lived reality. So maybe the real question is whether your mind collapses wave functions like a physicist measuring electrons. Maybe the real question is this: does your consciousness, Your attention, your intention, have real power to shape the reality you experience, and that's where things start to get very interesting. Albert Einstein hated this idea. He despised it so much that he spent the final years of his life trying to prove it wrong. He mocked it as spooky action at a distance and wrote furious papers arguing that it couldn't possibly be real. But it is. Quantum entanglement works like this. Take two particles and let them interact in a precise way. From that moment on, they become linked. No matter how far apart you separate them, centimeters, kilometers, even light years, something extraordinary happens. Change the state of one particle and the other responds instantly. Instantly. No delay, there is no signal traveling between them, no information moving through space. It's something far stranger. It's as if the two particles are not actually separate at all, but a single system stretched across distance. And this isn't speculation anymore. In 2022, 3 physicists were awarded the Nobel Prize for experimentally proving that quantum entanglement is real. Alain Aspect was one of them. He spent decades designing experiments, closing loopholes, eliminating every alternative explanation. The conclusion was unavoidable. Quantum entanglement is a fundamental feature of reality. Entangled particles know each other's state even when separated by absurd distances. Change one and the other changes at the same moment. No communication, no delay. Now this is the part that makes spiritual traditions lean forward. Because if two particles can remain connected across space, what does that say about the universe as a whole? And more importantly, what does that say about you? Think about it. At the moment of the Big Bang, everything that exists came from a single point. All matter, all energy. Everything was once together, entangled, unified. Then the universe expanded. Galaxies drifted apart. Stars formed, planets emerged. Eventually, you appeared. But on the most fundamental level, everything came from the same source. The question is, did that connection ever truly disappear? Mystics across cultures have always said no. Hindu texts speak of Brahman, the single underlying reality behind all forms. Buddhists teach interdependence, the idea that nothing exists independently. Shamans describe a web of life connecting all beings. They discovered this without laboratories or equations, only through deep inner observation and altered states of consciousness. And now modern physics arrives, centuries later, and quietly admits, something is going on here. Particles really are connected in ways that challenge our ideas of separation and distance. But, and there is always a but, quantum entanglement doesn't work the way people wish it did. You can't use it to send instant messages. You can't control one particle and force the other to behave however you want. Relativity still holds. Information does not travel faster than light. The connection is real, but it's subtle. Imagine this instead. You and a friend each have a magic coin. You flip yours here. Your friend flips theirs on the other side of the planet. Whenever your coin lands heads, theirs lands tails. Every time, instantly, without fail. But neither of you chose the outcome. What you've really discovered is correlation. And I know that can feel frustrating, because it sounds like you're standing right on the edge of something incredible, almost proving psychic connection, telepathy. Mind-to-mind influence, but not quite. Not in that simple, direct way people want. However, and this part matters, the fact that instant, non-local connection exists anywhere in nature already changes everything. It fundamentally alters how we think about separation. It reshapes how we understand distance. It challenges the very structure of what we call reality. Before quantum entanglement was experimentally confirmed, physics operated on a basic assumption. If things were separated in space, they were independent. The universe was thought to be made of distinct objects, isolated units, each doing its own thing. Cause here, effect there. Simple. Now we know that picture is incomplete. Things can be profoundly connected without signals traveling between them, without forces acting across space, without anything moving at all. They are not communicating, they are unified. One system appearing as two. And if that's true for electrons and photons, then the real question becomes uncomfortable very quickly. What else might be connected in ways we can't directly perceive? Your body is made of trillions of particles that were once entangled with other particles elsewhere in the universe. The person you passed on the street a few minutes ago, You're both built from atoms forged inside exploding stars billions of years ago, possibly even the same star. So ask yourself this honestly: is there a deeper level of reality where you and I aren't as separate as we appear? Now here's where things get very concrete. Your brain is changing right now. This second, as you read these words, every thought that arises, every emotion that flickers through you, every single thing you place your attention on is physically reshaping the structure of your brain. New connections are forming. Old ones are strengthening, others are weakening and fading away. The density of matter inside your skull is being altered in real time. This is called neuroplasticity. And it might be the most solid, undeniable bridge between thought and physical reality that we have. Let me give you an example that completely shuts down skepticism. Functional MRI studies show that when a person vividly visualizes a movement, like playing the violin, the same motor regions of the brain activate as when they are physically playing the instrument. Not similar, identical. From the brain's perspective, imagined experience and real experience are processed the same way. Your brain does not reliably distinguish between what actually happened and what you intensely imagined. Now take this further. Research on Buddhist monks who have meditated for decades reveals permanent structural changes in their brains. The anterior insula, linked to self-awareness and empathy, is significantly denser. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for focus and emotional regulation, contains more gray matter. The hippocampus, the center of memory and learning, is literally larger. They didn't just think differently. They thought differently for long enough that the physical organ inside their skull reorganized itself, and this leads to a powerful conclusion. You are not a prisoner of the brain you were born with. That old narrative, "This is just how I am. I can't change," it's a lie. Your brain is moldable like clay. And the sculpting tool is your attention. Consider this. Studies on London taxi drivers who must memorize over 25,000 streets and landmarks show that after years of training, their posterior hippocampus physically grows. More neurons, more connections, more matter, and when they retire and stop using that skill intensely, that region begins to shrink again. Use it or lose it. I find that both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because it means that if you spend your days anxious, replaying negative thoughts, constantly criticizing yourself, you're not just suffering mentally, you're physically constructing neural highways for anxiety. You're building a brain that becomes increasingly skilled at worrying. But it's liberating because the mechanism works both ways. If just 8 weeks of mindfulness meditation can measurably increase gray matter density in regions associated with memory, empathy, and emotional regulation, then you have real control. Measurable control. This isn't abstract spirituality. This is mechanics. This explains how contemplative practices actually change who you are. It's not about raising your vibration in some vague sense. It's about repeated, intentional focus, physically building a different brain, one that responds differently to stress, that notices opportunity where it once saw threat, that can hold attention instead of constantly fragmenting. But there's a critical detail most people miss. It takes time. Not instant manifestation, not one thought and you're done. It's repetition, consistency. Neural patterns must fire again and again before they become structurally embedded. Think of every thought as someone walking through a forest. The first time, it barely leaves a mark. Walk the same route repeatedly and a faint trail appears. Walk it enough times and the trail becomes a path, then a road. Your brain works the same way. Repetition creates myelination, an insulating layer around neural pathways that makes signals travel faster. Thoughts you repeat become quicker, more automatic, more you. So when mystics talk about cultivating mental states, they're not being poetic. They're describing a brain remodeling protocol. Cultivate gratitude, and you strengthen circuits associated with positivity and resilience. Cultivate fear, and you sensitize the amygdala, your threat detection system, making you more reactive, more defensive, more stressed. And look where this leads. If consistent thought reshapes brain structure, and brain structure determines how you perceive and respond to the world, then your thoughts are, in a very real sense, creating the reality you experience. Not magically, not instantly, but mechanically, by reshaping the organ through which reality is processed. Some people claim neuroplasticity proves the law of attraction. It doesn't. But it proves something just as powerful. You are not stuck. You can rebuild yourself from the inside out, thought by thought, day by day, and the brain isn't working alone. There's another organ most people ignore when thinking about consciousness and reality, yet it's constantly transmitting information beyond your body. We're taught the heart is just a pump, a mechanical muscle pushing blood. Important, yes, but passive. The brain commands, the heart obeys. That model is wrong. Your heart generates the strongest electromagnetic field in your body. It's not even close. Its electrical field is about 60 times greater in amplitude than the brain's. Its magnetic field is roughly 5,000 times stronger. This isn't mystical speculation. It's measured with magnetometers, standard scientific instruments, and this field extends beyond your body. Depending on your emotional state, it can reach 1 to 3 meters around you. You are literally walking through the world as an emotional antenna. When someone comes near you and you feel their presence as heavy or light, tense or calm, maybe you're not imagining it. Maybe you're detecting real electromagnetic information. Your heart contains receptors that detect external magnetic fields. This isn't a supernatural sixth sense. It's an electromagnetic one. Your heart's rhythm changes dramatically depending on what you feel. Anxiety, frustration, anger create chaotic, irregular patterns. Gratitude, love, and appreciation produce smooth, coherent rhythms. This is known as heart coherence, and it doesn't stop at the heart. A coherent emotional state reorganizes your entire body within minutes, but there's more. The coherent, or chaotic, electromagnetic field you generate doesn't stay private. Other people pick it up. Experiments show that when two people are placed in the same environment, when researchers measured their electromagnetic signals, something remarkable happened: synchronization. One person's field began influencing the others. And this effect became much stronger when there was emotional contact, real connection. The fields started pulsing together, locking into rhythm. And suddenly, a lot of everyday experiences start making sense. You understand why some people drain you while others energize you. Why being around certain individuals leaves you exhausted, while others make you feel calm, uplifted, or clear-headed without saying a word. There are studies showing that when you touch someone, your heart's electromagnetic field can actually be detected in the other person's brain waves. Let that sink in. Your heart is communicating directly with their brain. No language, no conscious intention, just proximity and emotional openness. This explains so much. It explains why genuine hugs calm the nervous system, why real presence can feel healing, why you sometimes know someone is lying even when their words sound perfect, because the energetic field doesn't match the speech. Your body is reading information your conscious mind never even registers. In practice, the heart functions as both an emotional processor and a transmitter of information. It doesn't just react to what you feel internally. It broadcasts that information outward into the environment, and at the same time, it receives what other hearts are transmitting. You've probably heard the phrase, "People only express what's inside them." This is that idea, but on a deeper level. A wounded heart, a fearful heart, a restless or troubled heart can only externalize what it identifies with. And this changes how we think about human interaction entirely. Because communication isn't just words, it isn't just body language. There is an electromagnetic layer of interaction happening constantly beneath conscious awareness. And here's the important part: you have influence over it. Not total control, not absolute mastery, but influence. If you spend your day in irritation, anxiety, chronic fear, your heart is generating a chaotic electromagnetic field. Inwardly, that field affects your organs, your nervous system, your brain, your health. Outwardly, it affects the people around you. You're literally creating a field of turbulence that others have to move through. But when you intentionally pause and enter coherence, by focusing on regenerative emotions like appreciation, gratitude, or care, you're not just doing a wellness exercise. You're changing the physics of your field, and that change ripples outward. There are experiments where one person enters a coherent heart state and nearby babies, pets, even plants show measurable physiological responses. The coherent field appears to have an organizing, stabilizing effect on surrounding biological systems. So when mystics talk about energy, vibration, or cleansing your aura, maybe they're using symbolic language to describe something with a real physical basis: your emotional electromagnetic field. So ask yourself this honestly: what frequency are you transmitting? Now I want to introduce you to something that absolutely terrifies the pharmaceutical industry, because it's the greatest threat to any new drug. At the same time, it's one of the strongest proofs that the mind can radically alter the body. The placebo effect. You've heard of it. Someone takes a sugar pill believing it's real medicine and they get better. It sounds trivial, almost silly, like self-deception, but that interpretation is completely wrong. The placebo effect produces real, measurable biochemical changes in the body. This is all in your head, in the sense of imagination. It's all in your head, in the sense that your head is literally changing your body chemistry. Let me give you examples that leave no room for doubt. There have been studies involving fake knee surgeries. Patients with severe osteoarthritis were divided into groups. Some received real surgery. Others were put under anesthesia. Surgeons made incisions, stitched them up, but did nothing inside. A complete sham operation. The results were shocking. Both groups improved equally: pain reduction, improved mobility, satisfaction with the outcome. Identical. Think about how wild that is. The patient believed so deeply that the surgery had fixed them that their body responded as if real structural repair had taken place. Reduced inflammation, improved function, genuine healing. And it goes further. Studies on Parkinson's patients show that when they take a placebo believing it's real medication, their brains release dopamine, the exact neurotransmitter they're deficient in. The same chemical Parkinson's drugs are designed to replace. The brain produced it on its own, purely from expectation. In other research, patients recovering from surgery were given morphine for pain. It worked, obviously. Then researchers secretly reduced the morphine dose, replacing it with saline, while telling the patients it was still morphine. Pain levels stayed low. The body released endogenous endorphins, its own natural opioids, in response to belief. When the patients were told the truth, that it was placebo, the pain returned. Belief flipped the body's internal painkillers on and off. The placebo effect isn't weakness. It's the body's self-healing system being activated by expectation and context. Like a recovery program that requires a password, and the password is belief. It even scales with ritual. Larger pills create stronger placebo effects than small ones. Injections work better than pills. Surgery works better than injections. The more invasive and dramatic the ritual, the stronger the biological response. People sometimes use this to dismiss alternative medicine. Oh, acupuncture is just placebo. But wait, if acupuncture activates the placebo response, and the placebo response produces real biochemical healing, then what exactly is fake about the result? Did the pain decrease or not? Did inflammation reduce or not? Placebo isn't imaginary. It's a real, powerful self-healing mechanism that we don't fully understand. In practical terms, this means your body has enormous regenerative capabilities lying dormant, waiting to be activated by the right expectation. You can literally switch on internal healing systems through belief. There are studies showing that 30 to 40% of patients with depression respond to placebos just as strongly as they do to antidepressants. The brain adjusts serotonin levels, reorganizes neural circuits, all based on the expectation of improvement. Think about that. If expectation alone can do this, what happens when you intentionally cultivate positive expectations about your life? Not in a naive way, not pretending problems don't exist, but genuinely believing that your body and mind have the capacity to reorganize, adapt, and improve. You're not lying to yourself. You're activating real biological protocols. And the opposite is just as powerful. Nocebo is the dark twin of placebo. When you expect harm, the body produces harm. There are documented cases of people overdosing on sugar pills during clinical trials, completely unaware they were placebos, and ending up in hospitals with real overdose symptoms. Low blood pressure, nausea, dizziness, everything reversed the moment they were told the truth. Expectation created the illness. Knowledge dissolved it. And there's one story that captures the raw power of belief in a way that still gives me chills. A man was dying. Rapid weight loss, organ failure. His condition was deteriorating fast. Doctors ran every test imaginable. No terminal illness, nothing that explained the collapse. Eventually, they discovered the cause. He believed he had been cursed. Someone had placed a spell on him, and he was absolutely convinced it would kill him. The belief was so deep that his body began fulfilling the prophecy. The doctor in charge had an idea. He told the patient he had located the person who cast the curse. He said he spoke with them personally. After intense negotiation, the person agreed to remove it. The doctor described the conversation in vivid detail, assured him the curse was gone. None of it was real. There was no curse, no conversation, nothing. But within days, the man began to recover. His appetite returned, his organs stabilized, strength returned, he fully recovered. The very same mind that had been killing him healed him, nothing external changed, no new drug. No hidden disease discovered. What changed was the story his mind was running. The narrative that had activated a death protocol was replaced with one that activated a healing protocol. And that's what makes belief both terrifying and liberating. The mind can run a self-destruction program or a regeneration program depending on the story you believe you're living inside. So when you spend your days expecting the worst, convinced things will go wrong, obsessing over symptoms, replaying disasters that haven't happened yet, you may be unknowingly triggering a nocebo response. Your body responding to your mental narrative as if it were physical reality. This is not victim blaming. It's not saying illness is a choice. It's recognizing that expectation and mental context have real biological consequences that can either support or sabotage any form of treatment. We're taught that cause always comes before effect. You flip the switch, the light turns on. You plant the seed, the tree grows. The past causes the future. That's how reality works, right? Except quantum physics has uncovered something that shouldn't exist. There's a category of experiments called delayed choice experiments. They were first proposed by John Wheeler, one of the most brilliant physicists of the 20th century. The idea is almost offensive to common sense. You make a measurement decision after a particle has already passed through the experiment, as if the event already happened. But your future choice of how to observe it retroactively changes what the particle did in the past. In other words, your present decision alters past behavior. This isn't philosophy. This has been tested repeatedly in laboratories around the world. The particle genuinely behaves differently in the past, depending on what you decide to measure in the future. It's as if the future reaches backward and touches the past. Now, before you start imagining time travel and undoing that message you sent your ex, slow down. This happens at the quantum scale, with individual particles under extremely controlled conditions. It doesn't mean you can rewrite personal history at will. But it does mean something far more unsettling. Time does not work the way we think it does. And there's more. There's a field of research called presentiment that shows something just as disturbing. Your body reacts to events before they happen. Dean Radin, a researcher at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, has conducted hundreds of experiments exploring this. The setup is simple. A person sits in front of a screen. Sensors measure skin conductance, heart rate, pupil dilation. Every few seconds, an image flashes on the screen. Sometimes it's neutral, a chair, a landscape. Sometimes it's emotionally intense, violence, shock, fear. The images are selected randomly by a computer. Not even the researcher knows what's coming. Here's where reality breaks. The sensors show that the person's body reacts 3 to 5 seconds before the emotionally charged image appears. Heart rate changes. Skin response spikes. Pupils dilate before the stimulus exists. How does the body know what's coming when the computer hasn't even chosen the image yet? It shouldn't be possible. It violates basic causality, and yet the data exists, replicated. Across multiple labs, think about the implications. If your body can register future events subconsciously, then the boundary between past, present, and future isn't nearly as solid as it feels. Some kind of information is flowing backward through time. Or maybe past and future are just convenient labels for human experience, not properties of fundamental reality. This would explain intuition, that sudden knowing, that gut feeling you can't logically justify, that sense that something is about to happen. There are studies showing that high-performing stock traders display stronger precognitive physiological responses. Before a market crash, their bodies already react. They feel it. They exit early. They avoid the loss. This changes how we think about decision-making. When you feel a deep, visceral hunch that defies logic, maybe it's not irrational emotion. Maybe it's temporal information being processed below conscious awareness, which leads to the biggest question of all. If the future can influence the present, does that mean the future already exists? Is everything predetermined? Not necessarily. It could be that multiple probable futures exist simultaneously as quantum potentials, and your body isn't detecting fixed outcomes, it's sensing probability patterns, likely futures. Weighted possibilities, you're not seeing the future, you're feeling its likelihood, and that leaves room for free will, for choice, for altering trajectory. I won't pretend to fully understand how this works. No one does. Physicists have debated it for decades without consensus. But the experiments are real. The physiological presentiment data exists. Something strange is happening with time. And when you take this into the spiritual realm, it gets even more interesting. Ancient mystical practices are built around this exact idea. Visualizing a desired future, not as fantasy, but as a way of creating temporal gravity. You imagine a future with emotional intensity, and that future begins pulling the present toward it. It's not magic. It may simply be the physics of time, just not the version we've fully mapped yet. Neville Goddard, one of the most influential manifestation teachers of the 20th century, taught a technique called revision. Before sleep, you mentally rewrite events of the day. He claimed this didn't just change your emotional response, but altered future consequences of those events. Quantum physics tells us consciousness affects reality. But knowing this intellectually changes nothing. You have to train your mind to work with it deliberately. That's why in the Quantum Thinking Challenge, there are 21 days of structured practices designed to turn theory into lived experience. Here, you're learning. In the challenge, you apply it. Access is in the first pinned comment. For decades, physicists assumed quantum effects only existed in extreme conditions. Ultra-cold laboratories, near absolute zero temperatures, perfect vacuums. Total isolation. In the messy real world, heat, movement, molecular noise, quantum effects were supposed to vanish instantly. That's why no one thought biology could be quantum. Your body is warm, wet. Chaotic, full of thermal motion, the worst possible environment for quantum phenomena. Except they were wrong. In 2007, scientists studying photosynthesis discovered something astonishing. Inside living plant cells at room temperature, quantum coherence was happening. Electrons didn't choose a single path. They explored all possible paths simultaneously and selected the most efficient one. It's as if plants are using quantum computation to optimize energy transfer. This should not be possible. And yet it is. Billions of plants do this every day. They've been doing it for millions of years, and there's more. Migratory birds navigate using Earth's magnetic field. Everyone already knew that migratory birds use Earth's magnetic field to navigate. The mystery was always how. How does a living organism actually detect something so subtle? Researchers eventually found the answer in a protein located in the bird's eyes called cryptochrome. When blue light strikes this protein, it creates a pair of quantum-entangled electrons. That entanglement allows the bird to see the magnetic field as a kind of visual pattern. We break this down in detail in another video, Edgar Case's shocking discovery about birds, what they really see. I'll leave it linked in the description so you can watch it later. The takeaway is profound. Nature figured out how to use quantum effects in hot, wet, noisy environments. It evolved ways to protect quantum coherence long enough to actually do something useful with it. And that leads to a massive philosophical implication. If you are a quantum system, then you exist in superposition until observed. Multiple versions of you, multiple possible states. Each moment collapsing into a specific reality through interaction with the environment. That means you are not fixed. You are a field of possibilities. Every moment of observation, every interaction, every internal measurement collapses you into one version of yourself. Which version emerges depends on the observer, the context, and the intention. Mystics have been saying this forever, that you have no fixed nature, that reality is fluid, that observation and intention shape what manifests. And now quantum biology is beginning to reveal mechanisms that could explain how this might actually work. Because if plants use superposition to absorb light with insane efficiency, if birds use entanglement to navigate entire continents, who's to say you aren't using quantum properties in ways we haven't even discovered yet? Your body is stranger, more sophisticated, and more deeply connected to the fabric of reality than anyone believed just 20 years ago. Now let's explore one of the most fascinating ideas in all of physics, the many worlds interpretation. The basic idea is simple but mind-bending. Every time a quantum particle chooses one state over another, the universe splits. Both outcomes happen, but in different parallel realities. This isn't science fiction. It's a legitimate interpretation of quantum mechanics proposed by physicist Hugh Everett in 1957. Here's how it works. Earlier, we talked about superposition, a particle existing in multiple states at once. In the Copenhagen interpretation, observation causes the wave to collapse, and one outcome becomes real. In the many worlds interpretation, nothing collapses. All possibilities continue to exist. You just experience one branch of an ever-branching tree of realities. The other versions of you follow the other branches. Right now, there are potentially trillions of versions of you in parallel universes, each making slightly different choices. I know that sounds insane at first, but serious physicists at top universities consider this one of the most elegant explanations of quantum mechanics. Why? Because it removes the mystery of observation entirely. There's no need to explain why or how waves collapse. They don't. Everything happens. You simply experience one path. Now connect this with something anyone who's studied manifestation has heard before. All possibilities already exist. You just need to align with the right frequency. That always sounded poetic. Symbolic, but what if it's literal? What if there truly is a field of possibilities where all versions of your life coexist? Where you are rich and poor, healthy and sick, fulfilled and frustrated, all at once across different branches of reality. If that's the case, then you're not creating something from nothing. You're choosing which branch you experience. Every decision you make becomes a branching point. The universe splits and your consciousness, your observation, determines which branch feels real. You're not creating reality. You're navigating realities that already exist as potential. That means the version of you want to become already exists somewhere on that tree. The life you desire is already being lived by another version of you in another timeline. The work isn't to manifest from thin air. It's to align your frequency, your choices, your internal state with the branch where that reality exists. But how does that actually work? Every choice you make, no matter how small, is a quantum decision point. Getting up early or hitting snooze, eating intentionally or not, making that call or avoiding it. Each decision nudges you onto a slightly different branch, and those tiny differences compound. Over days, months, years, they create radically different timelines. The version of you living the life you want didn't make one massive heroic decision. They made a different series of small choices that slowly took them there. And every present moment is another opportunity to choose alignment with that branch. In quantum physics, not all outcomes are equally likely. Some states have higher probability amplitudes. They're easier to access. Others exist but are statistically rare. So when you try to manifest something completely disconnected from your current patterns, you're attempting to jump to a low-probability branch. Is it possible? Yes. Is it likely? Not at first. But when you begin making consistent choices that increase the probability amplitude of that reality, you thicken that branch. You make it more accessible, more likely to collapse into your lived experience. I find that deeply liberating. It removes the pressure to think perfectly all the time. It's not about flawless visualization or never having a negative thought. It's about the direction of your choices. Are you moving toward the branch you want or away from it? It's logical too. If you wake up every day at the first alarm, get dressed, and go to the gym, 5 years from now you'll be stronger, healthier, maybe even in incredible shape. If you wake up every day, hit snooze, and skip it, 5 years from now you'll be worse, or exactly the same. Both futures already exist. You just decide which one becomes yours. And if all outcomes already exist, then failure isn't final. It's just you exploring one branch. You can always choose differently and shift direction. There is no such thing as too late. There is no, "I ruined everything." Every moment is a new branching point with infinite possibilities opening up. In practice, this means your past doesn't define you. It only defines the branch you were following. The version of you who overcame that obstacle already exists. You just have to make the choices that version would make. So we've reached the end of this exploration of how thought and reality intersect. And yes, it's a lot to take in, but the truth is we've only scratched the surface. Because there's one critical piece I intentionally left out, a piece that completely changes how all of this works in practice. In the next video, I'll show you exactly how, the protocols, the studies, the techniques people are using to tune into the quantum field through intentional emotional regulation. You can understand all the theory. You can know quantum physics, neuroplasticity, and biology inside out. But if you don't master your emotional states, it's like having the code to a vault and never typing it in. Everything is there. It just won't open. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell. We've talked about the what and the why. Now it's time for the how.